Hello, people. The amount of Bitcoin at exchanges and are we heading for a supply crunch have always been words that have been actually thrown around. But I haven't really seen anyone do an actual analysis numerically of what's actually at the exchanges based on data. I found some data and we're going to actually look at it and see if we're actually close to a supply crunch. Obviously, it's impossible to tell entirely because there are a lot of moving parts, but it does seem that exchange's OTC supply is dwindling, although very slowly because we have data all the way back from 2021 and we do see the OTC plus supply coming down. However, I would like to say that the OTC supply is not the same as the exchange's overall supply because the exchange's overall supply, some of it is the exchanges, but a lot of it is actually people holding their money at the exchanges, whether in custody or whatnot. And the exchanges can't use that as OTC supply. So those are two very different things. So I'm just going to explain that to you so you kind of have a foundation and understand what's going on. So let's actually look at what the exchanges actually have. So exchange balances. Now, I think this is from CoinGlass. Obviously, I'm not sure if their data is 100% or not, but they have data of all the major exchanges, all the way down to FTX, which doesn't really have any Bitcoin anymore because they're broke. So essentially, you have Coinbase Pro having the most, 670,544 Bitcoin, 24-hour change plus 977, but 7-day change negative 7,393. One thing I will say that most of the big exchanges have had like pretty large outflows on the 7 days, and even most are red on the 30 days as well, because people are taking more and more of their crypto off exchanges and storing it themselves. So the exchange supply has actually gone down. But you can see Coinbase, Binance, Bitfinex have the biggest balance on paper, followed by Gemini, OKX, Kraken, Bitflyer, Bybit, all the way down, like I said, to FTX. So they have all the major exchanges. And you will notice that like a lot of the spaces like Coinbase Pro, Gemini, Kraken have been taken up by US exchanges. They have a large balance on hand. The total balance, however, is 2.15 million Bitcoin that they have on hand. Negative in the last 24 hours, that's gone by 3K. In the last 7 days, that's gone down by 20K. And in the last 30 days, that's gone down by 118,000. So people are actually taking more and more of their money off the exchanges, which could be good news. If you look at BTC price versus balance, you can see Bitcoin balance definitely has gone down since February of 2024. Balance on exchanges 2.69 million. It's gone down to about 2.17, came back up, but now it's like 2.2 something million Bitcoin. So it's gone down significantly in the last, basically in the last like year and a half, 2 years, whatever. So that's actually pretty good news because that means that there's more of a chance of a squeeze. But that's the overall exchange supply. But we have to ask, how much Bitcoin do the crypto exchanges have? But we're interested in OTC supply. And we can actually see that OTC balances are declining. Dark Faust at TradingView notes that the OTC balance held by exchanges has decreased from approximately 480K to 146K since September 2021. Now, that's almost 4 years. There is a steady demand for Bitcoin even after price increases. That's very, very good news for us. That means people are continuing to buy. However, that also tells us that there is a replenishing of the OTC supply. And that makes a lot of sense because as the higher the prices go, the more people that are going to be willing to sell Bitcoin for a profit because they need the money or they just want to cash out. So it is a steady trickle though. So like almost 500,000 BTC to only 146,000 BTC. Now, like I said, if Michael Saylor buys more BTC, and the price of BTC goes up, that supply will actually increase as obviously when we get to like, 400K BTC, there's going to be more and more people that are willing to sell. Not everyone is trying to hold on to Bitcoin forever and not sell. We also have this. Public companies have been accumulating Bitcoin with the number of Bitcoin held by them, growing by 31% since the beginning of this year, 2025, according to Bitcoin treasuries. The inclusion of Coinbase in the S&P 500 is seen as a positive step for crypto industry, further solidifying the role of exchanges. So essentially, like the number, it is mostly big institutions and companies that have been buying Bitcoin. Their holdings have massively increased, and that's obviously put a strain on Bitcoin supply. The biggest buyer out of all of these is obviously MicroStrategy. I don't think anyone will debate me on that. And we actually have kind of like a chart of what their purchases actually are. They even have how many Bitcoin they have in total, average Bitcoin cost. You can see MicroStrategy's average DCA value is 69K. So they never actually went down, even below, even during that dip. Acquisition cost, they've spent about $40 billion. And BTC holdings, obviously, they've got a lot. They've made about 50% on their holdings over the years. Now, because Michael Saylor has basically doubled down and basically like did his 42-42 thing, which is 42 billion in stock offerings, 42 billion in bonds, and upped his 21-21 in the last couple of weeks, we should look at the last 7 weeks for an indication of how much like average he's going to buy. Obviously, some weeks he didn't buy a lot, like back in May of 2021, he did not buy a lot. But then again, here in November of 2024, when Bitcoin was going up, he did actually buy a lot. But let's just take an account of the last 7 weeks. I actually calculated this out. He bought about 70,000 Bitcoin over the last 7 weeks, which comes out to about 10,000 Bitcoins per week. Some weeks, like here, he bought 22. Other weeks, he bought 3. But average, he buys about 10,000 Bitcoins a week. And assuming he doesn't change the 42-42 plan into an 84-84 plan, which, it's Michael Saylor, so he actually might. I'm going to guess he's going to purchase about 10,000 Bitcoins per week for this foreseeable future because he's going to double the amount of money that he's going to spend on Bitcoin, and he might actually up it if Bitcoin price continues to go up. Now, obviously, his DCA cost is actually going to go up as Bitcoin did just hit a new all-time high, but that's not really all that relevant to this particular video. So he buys about 10,000 coins per week. Well, how much do they actually have in OTC? Right now, they have about 146,000 BTC in OTC. So that would mean after about 15 weeks, or roughly, let's say like 4 months, they would be out. But like I said, that's not how it works. Just with Michael Saylor buying, because as the price of Bitcoin goes up, more people make their Bitcoin available in OTC. But there's also the other caveat that he's not the only one buying. So a Bitcoin squeeze is more like a long-term like shrinkage on the supply. And as the supply gets smaller and smaller, the squeeze gets tighter and tighter. And they basically have to push up the price more and more because they have to get more people to actually part with their Bitcoin. So I do think that once they drop under 100,000, which could actually occur within 2 to 3 months is my guess, based on the amount they've been shrinking, how much Michael Saylor is buying, and how much other institutions are buying, I think they could actually go under 100,000 in like 2 or 3 months, maybe 3 or 4 months. And then you definitely could get like more of a run as these exchanges want to secure more OTC, BTC, just in case people want more. And the more the demand the exchanges have, the more they want to buy from customers. Obviously, the more expensive that is going to get. So that does actually set us up for about the beginning of Q4, like everything else. It's like everything's melding in towards October for a big rush. Obviously, Bitcoin is rushing up right now, and we're hoping that will pull the rest of everything up. We don't really have any numbers for altcoin demand and pricing because right now, as far as I know, institutions don't really have a demand for altcoins, and retail is not in. So even without retail, just with Saylor actually buying, he is buying several times more than the amount of Bitcoin being mined. And obviously, that enters OTC as well. So we have to keep in mind, Saylor is buying 10,000 BTC per week. So if we ask like how much Bitcoin's being mined per week, you can see that this is going to be a problem How many Bitcoins are mined per day? 450 Bitcoins per day. You multiply that by 7. That is 3,150 Bitcoins per week. Obviously, if you buy 10,000 Bitcoins per week, you are still short 6,850 Bitcoins. You take that, divide it by 150,000. Obviously, that's going to drain pretty fast. Within 20, 25 weeks, that's going to be all gone. But more is going to become available, so you can't really look at it that way. And plus, outside of Saylor buying, like I said, you do actually have a lot of other people buying similar scientific. And now, obviously, the states of maybe Texas and Arizona and countries as well that are trying to buy for their sovereign wealth fund. So if you look at the buying pressure as MicroStrategy, maybe times 1.5 or times 2, that's really, really big. So based on the data and how much actually OTC balance, how much OTC balance exchanges have, that's not their entire balance, obviously. I would say we're going to feel the effects of a squeeze in about 3 months, 3 to 4 months, because there's just not enough Bitcoin being mined. And Michael Saylor is buying 3 times what's actually being mined himself. Plus, there's other demand. So there's going to have to be a decline in OTC. And once OTC gets below 100,000, gets below 75,000, I expect exchanges to get somewhat nervous and try to accumulate more BTC. And that kind of pressure will actually push price up. Hopefully, it drags the rest of the crypto market up with it. Obviously, there is no promise that it actually will, because I don't think exchanges are trying to buy these altcoins off of people. I haven't really seen any evidence of that. But if you're really wondering about, people keep on saying we're going to have a Bitcoin supply crunch, and you're wondering, man, are they really going to have a Bitcoin supply crunch? Well, the data actually does say yes, because we have been massively decreasing in OTC balance since September of 2021, and the supply or the demand has constantly been increasing over that time as well. And because the supply has been increasing, the demand has constantly been increasing over that time, and the supply has been shrinking, we're going to get to a point where exchanges don't run out of Bitcoin. Exchanges will never run out of Bitcoin, but they're going to be frantically buying Bitcoin, and that is going to force the price up. Maybe you're kind of seeing some of that right now, and that's kind of why we're rising higher and higher. Saylor has definitely done his part in terms of buying up all the Bitcoin supply, and he's a big reason why we're at 111,000, but he's also a part of the reason why Bitcoin is going up and no one else is going up, just essentially because these other altcoins don't have a big buyer like Michael Saylor. So when Bitcoin sells off a little bit, they sell off a lot because Saylor's still trying to buy the dip and no one's buying the dip for altcoins. And they're not exponentially increasing because the retail hasn't surged in yet because of the economy and, of course, because of other factors. So that's what the data says. If this keeps going 3 or 4 months, we could actually see a pretty big surge if we don't just keep on surging right now. Keep a track of how much the exchanges have in total. You can check on TradingView what the OTC supply actually is, and check the Saylor tracker, like I've said, for how much Michael Saylor is buying. And you can probably make a decision yourself on how much time is left before we get to a point where the exchanges are very, very nervous that they might actually run out of Bitcoin. So that's the news for today. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.